lesson, we'll divide the surface of a simple mass and decide on a pattern for the structure. So now that our mass is in place, what we're basically looking at here is a really smooth surface. So we've created a surface in Revit. But with this, if you go take it one step further, with the surface, how this surface is put together is with UV rays. So what we could do is we can actually split this surface into those rays. So all I need to do is highlight that surface we just created. And at the top right here, you'll notice a button called Divide Surface. I'm simply going to select that, and you'll see a nice little mesh appear here. And what this is basically is you could look at this as the bones or the skeleton of that surface we just created. And it's put together with 2, maybe 3 elements here. We've got U grids and V grids, and this is also known as UV grids. So basically, I can control and see what I'm working with up here in the right. So we know this is a surface. So if I were to select that, hit that surface button, my surface appears. So when I click that again, my mesh appears. But how do I know which direction is going in the U direction and which direction is going in the V direction when it comes to my grids? Well, an easy way to kind of get familiar with your structure here is to simply play with these buttons. So what I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and click off my U grid. So now how this reads is anything basically moving in the long direction of this structure, my longer pieces are going to be present when this V grid is highlighted. So I can click on that again, and I can click on the V grids now, and you can see the ones going perpendicular to that or in the opposite direction are present when my U grid is highlighted. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and highlight both. And another thing that really ties this together and will allow us to create a really cool structure are nodes. And those are basically little points that are present at the intersection of our U and V grids. So basically, all we need to do, and this is kind of hidden here. If I didn't see this or no one told me about this, I really wouldn't know it was here. But to get your nodes and drop your nodes into your mesh, just above your options bar, you'll notice a little arrow here. Click that arrow, and we'll get a surface representation window here. And all we need to do is check nodes and click OK. And what that'll do is it'll bring in all our nodes. So if we're placing elements in here, or maybe we're taking an adaptive modeling approach, or whatever we're doing with our model, they'll actually be able to snap to these points, and it just makes controlling this a lot better. So now that we have an understanding of how this mesh is structured, let's see what we can do as far as options on patterns. So right now, how this looks is we don't have a pattern set up. So if you look in our properties window, right now we're set with no pattern. But if you wanted to automate and automatically drop in some really cool and interesting patterns to this, we can. So I can go to this drop down, and when I do that, you'll notice we have a wide range of options. I have octagon here, and when I click that, it'll automatically create that form, and it creates this really neat looking form here. I'm sure a lot of people could do something really creative with that. But I'm going to select that again, and I'm going to go back to my drop down, and we can look at a couple of other options and see if they will work for what we have in mind. So we have a triangular flat, which seems like it might do some good for us. But I think I'm going to go with the other style. We're actually going to create a custom pattern ourselves. And I'm going to show you a couple of tricks to actually use that pattern as a way of placing your structure. So what I'm going to do really quickly is just go to my simple rectangular pattern here. And I'm going to select on my object again. And right now our mesh is pretty busy, which means we have a lot of lines going on this way as well as this way. That's going to require a lot of structure. So if I wanted to adjust the spacing between my grids, I can do so. So to understand how that works, I'm going to show you a rule of thumb how I look at it. So basically how this is broken down, you can tell in the properties window here. Once you click on your mesh or your form, you'll see 2 options here. We have a U grid area, and we also have a V grid area. And we can actually come down to the number and adjust that number. And so right now, this number says 12. So what that's telling me is basically that there's 12 bays or 12 spaces in between my meshes. So let's go ahead and count this and kind of verify this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 bays. And the same thing going in this direction, 12. So if I want to make some adjustments to that and I want to reduce my structure, I can simply do so by dropping that number down to a more reasonable number. And we'll go with 6 for both, in both directions. So I'll change the U and I'll change the V and I'll click apply. And it'll automatically simplify that structure for me, especially a structure like this where it kind of tapers down at the end and things really get closer. I mean, honestly, I could probably stand to drop this down one more time. I know that I'm going to have plenty of structure in there. So let's drop this down to maybe a 5 and see what that does for us. It opens up the spacing in between here. So now that we have an understanding of that, let's take a stop here. And in the next lesson, we're going to jump into creating our own pattern, which will actually be the structure for this mesh we've just created. So I'll see you in the next lesson.